Let's continue our discussion of the cash flow statement. If you recall, we said that the purpose of the cash flow statement was to answer the question, am I living within my means? And then the process for creating the cash flow statement is to list all of your income and then list all of your expenses and then subtract those expenses from income. Now, let's move on and talk about how we analyze Now let's move on and talk about how we analyze the cash flow statement. Once you have created that cash flow statement, the net result is you're going to figure out how much money your client has left over after they've paid all their bills. So remember, that's either going to be a surplus, meaning it's a positive number, they do have money left over, or there is a deficit. And it's actually quite simple how you're going to want to go about this analysis, because you want to have a surplus and hopefully not a deficit. But if there is a deficit, you're either going to have to help your client come up with ways to increase income or reduce expenses. And then also, if they do have a surplus, you may want to provide a little analysis there and think about, how do you want to use that surplus? Because ideally, you want their income and expenses to actually be equal, or income minus expenses should be zero, because in that case, that means that they're taking any surplus and they're saving it or investing it. So the analysis for a client who has a surplus is to help them think about ways to save or invest. Now, when we talk about saving or investing, though, the first priority in saving should be to pay off any consumer debt that they might have. But these are all questions that you want to work through with your client in terms of, first, do they have a surplus or a deficit? And if they do have a surplus, how do they want to use that surplus? Do they want to save it or invest it? And do they have any debt that they need to retire first before they get too far along in talking about saving and investing? But if they do have a deficit, then help them look at their income and see if there are ways that they can create more income or increase their income, maybe by a part-time job, maybe by selling unused items. We have a whole list of different ways that they can increase income, maybe even starting their own business or just a side opportunity to create extra income. And then on reducing expenses, look at what luxuries they could give up, at least until their income catches up with their expenses. And so that's an opportunity for you to work with your client. And again, kind of asking the probing questions to identify those opportunities to correct any issues that you've uncovered through the cash flow statement. And now lastly, after you've analyzed, and we've kind of addressed this already, after you've analyzed the cash flow statement with your client, you want to address any concerns that they have. And I was just saying that we've kind of talked about this already because those concerns are likely going to be about this surplus and deficit, or surplus or deficit, and how they should address those issues that you've revealed. And also, you may find that there are some related issues once you uncover whether or not they have a surplus or a deficit. For example, if they do have a deficit, some deficit issues could be that that deficit is really not sustainable. So are they making late payments? Are they using their credit cards excessively, or is their credit rating even suffering because of those late payments? And then with surplus issues, those are kind of happier problems to have, but there could be some issues related to a surplus, like maybe their money isn't working for them the way that it should, so they have excess cash on hand. And maybe this would be an opportunity to talk to them about banking options if they are unbanked or underbanked. And so looking at that surplus, you're going to talk to them about how they want to use it, saving or investing, or paying off debt. But that may also expand into a conversation about banking options and how they actually manage their day-to-day cash versus their cash that is reserved for emergencies or long-term needs. So those are all different concerns that you may identify once you have had a chance to create the cash flow statement for your client and then analyze that cash flow statement with them.